your boy Jamar McClain.
And Raphael Anthony. So today we're talking about Richard Franklin Lennox Thomas Pryor III.
Yeah, he got a long name.
Also known as Richard Pryor.
One of the greatest comedians of all time. He influenced so many. And yeah, let's get it started, man.
The great thing about Richard Pryor is that you hear a lot of comedians saying that he's one of the ones who just kicked it off. He just really made it his own by making people feel like you can just be yourself and say anything.
Yeah.
So here's a clip from one of his famous ones in Long Beach.
I don't want to never see no more police in my life at my house taking my ass to jail for killing my car. And it seemed fair to kill my car to me, right? Because my wife was going to leave my ass. You know, I said, not in this motherfucker, you ain't. No, Lord. No, if you leave, you'll be driving them hush puppies you got on. Because I'm going to kill this motherfucker here. And I had one of them big old magnums, you know that noise they make when you shoot something. I shot a tire, I said, boom. Tire said, It got good to me. I shot another one. And that vodka I was drinking said, go ahead, shoot something else.
That's the thing about Richard Pryor is that he had this skill in being able to describe things where you felt like you know exactly what he's talking about.
He was a good storyteller. Yeah, he's one of the best. But, well, the whole point, too, is a lot of shit he was talking about was true. So when you tell the truth in your comedy, it's easier, more believable, and it has a visualization about it. But Bill Cosby quoted saying Richard Pryor drew the line between comedy and tragedy as thin as one could possibly paint it.
You know,
he talks about the things that happen in his life.
And it's crazy because Bill Cosby's style is so different. When
he was the opposite.
Richard Pryor debuted first on TV back in 1964 on a show called On Broadway Tonight. And he comes up with like a suit, a little black tie, and he gives that impression of, Bill Cosby-ish.
It's just the early stand-ups where it was like they just stood there and they stood in front of the mic stand, or it wasn't no kind of animation behind it, no movement. They just told jokes. It was a lot of like set up, punchline. Where that was his early
one-liners kind of a thing.
Yeah, one-liners. That's before he became Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
Like his early stuff was not who he became famous for.
Because there was a time that he walked out of an audience and he changed, right?
Yeah, it was in Vegas. He was already headlining in Vegas. It was in the 70s where he had like an epiphany or something where he went up and he seen Dean Martin was in the audience and it was just a bunch of white people. He went on stage and he was like, what the hell am I doing? It was at the Latin Hotel. He walked on stage and it was a sold out crowd, and then he walked to the microphone and he said, what the fuck am I doing here? And then walked off the stage.
Damn, just the balls, to be able to just change your style. That's his. Okay, so Richard Pryor was born in December 1st, 1940. He's had 3 siblings at the time, and he came from a very interesting background. His family itself was very crazy.
Well, shit, you grew up in a brothel, and your mom's a prostitute. I think you're going to have stories.
Yeah, his grandma was, I guess, the madame or something.
Yeah, she was
setting up the whole thing.
Yeah, she was the madam of the whole house.
He did go to, he really enjoyed going to the movie theaters. He was trying to escape his reality. He finally went to the U.S. Army in 1958, 1960, and was technically doing a lot of theater shows. Mm-hmm. He was just doing a lot of that, which gave him that launching pad of doing more shows and more shows. But by the time he found himself and his technique and his style is when everything changed.
He started using more profanity. He started using the word nigga in his act. He just switched up. He started talking about the racial tension in America. And he told a lot of truth.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Yeah, and there's something unique about him, and a lot of you guys may know, is that he uses the white voice. He
was the first comedian to do that. Like now, like Martin Lawrence did it in his sitcom. Dave Chappelle did it on his show.
Eddie Murphy was really good at it.
Eddie Murphy did it. A lot of comedians did it, but he was the first one to do it, though.
Like, really deliver it. I want to show you guys the clip of him doing that.
Some white dudes you you cut in front of don't play that shit though, right? You cut in front of them, all right, cut the shit.
You do it real loud. Cut the shit.
Just cut the fucking crapola.
Cut the fucking crapola.
I love when white dudes get mad and cuss, right? Because y'all some funny motherfuckers when you cuss. Right? They be saying shit like, yeah, come on, peckerhead.
I've heard people say that.
Fucking jerk
Come
off.
on, you fucking jerk off. Come on. Son of a bitch, come on. Yeah, you fucking ain't right, buddy.
You ain't right, buddy. Come on,
Niggas
man.
be talking about, buddy this.
Buddy this.
What I appreciate about Richard Pryor is that sometimes when he wants to make it sound like there's some type of order, and he's there to show people that there isn't. So when he does the white boy, sometimes he does that, well, Mr. Richard. And he really makes that style, like delivering that there is a big difference between how people communicate when it comes to just issues going on. So...
Once he started putting out his albums, that's when it just like his best album to date was The Nigger's Crazy. It came out in '74. I know it went platinum, but he just started winning Grammys after Grammys for all his albums that he put out.
Yeah. One style technique that he was really well known for and appreciated is that he talked about himself. He talked about what was going on in his life, as crazy as it was. One of his best friends was Jim Brown, which was a very popular football player, famous football player, Hall of Famer for sure. But he went through a very crazy moments in his life. You're thinking that maybe he's hurting himself in a way, but in reality he was just exploring the craziness that was around him. This was the 70s, the late 60s, the early 70s, the mid 70s. So. He was right on there. He finally got control of it until the incident happened in the 1980s.
Yeah, he blew up in the 70s for sure. He used to write for Sanford & Son, Flip Wilson show. He won an Emmy on Lily Tomlin special. But like he really broke through with the movies he was in, like The Mac, Car Wash, Blue Collar, and he was in the Muppet movie, the one that came out in the late 70s.
He was also with Gene Wilder.
Yeah. Once he started doing the movies with Gene Wilder,
It just
started crazy.
And I love Gene Wilder. We'll be talking about him soon in our show for sure. But you guys have to go check out these films if you haven't done so. They're just hilarious.
It was crazy.
The chemistry they had.
He co-wrote with Mel Brooks, Blazing Saddles, but he couldn't even get in it.
Because of what happened. So back in June 9th of 1980, he lit himself on fire. And he was freebasing, so he was pretty darn high.
Yeah. He lit himself with a Bacardi 151. He just poured it all over his body and then just torched himself.
I'm laughing. I shouldn't be laughing, but it's just so.
Torch.
It was so wild, the life that he was living.
And then he just started running in the street. He just started running, and then like people were trying to like stop him, and then like some police finally got him to stop and got him in the ambulance.
Yeah, it's just insane that made him lose a lot of opportunities in film, but it still woke him up.
You gotta be high as fuck to set yourself on fire for one, but they were saying they was like a attempted suicide. I just think he was high as shit. And supposedly it was that monk that was protesting the Vietnam War. Remember it was a monk on TV that was on fire?
Yeah.
I think he's seen that.
The Vietnamese War.
Something where he's seen that monk on TV. And I think that shit was like...
influenced a bit.
He was sitting there just taking it. And the monk was just sitting there. And he was like, you know what? Fuck it, I could do that. That was like after a while, it's probably not painful after a while. It just gets numb.
Oh my God. That's just insane. And of course, he brought this on stage. There's a way to be able to be... I mean, he healed himself. He had great support from his family and his friends. But he did bring this on stage to be able to talk about it. And there's a clip about that I want to show you guys.
But I thank God every day, Jack. I do. I say, God, thank you for not burning my dick. Because most people said, you've been punished by God. I say, no, if God wanted to punish my ass, he'd have burnt my dick. Now that's some punishment. Because when that fire hit my ass, my dick went to work. Emergency! Piss, come, do something! to fire off the balls.
Dick wagging.
And my chest was hollering help. The dick say, fuck you, don't for yourself. I'm protecting the balls. Spit.
Spit.
That's the thing about Richard Pryor is that he's able to bring his things that were going on in his private life and bring it to the audience. And he delivered it so well that it was a launching pad for other comedians, technically a roadmap for comedians to try the same thing.
And that shit was only 2 years after that happened, too.
Yeah, just
film that.
2 years after a crazy incident. His marketing team is public. We're trying to hide it as an accident, so they always call it the accident. But he later admitted that he was technically committing suicide.
You know what's crazy too? I heard about that special that he recorded on Sunset in Hollywood.
Yeah.
That he did it 2 nights in a row, and the first night that he bombed, that it was like people weren't really laughing.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's what I heard. And then he came back the next night and did the same exact routine, and then he ended up killing that shit.
Wow.
Yep.
It just shows even the one that you're at your highest, things can go faulty, but you just got to keep.
I'm sure he didn't bomb. I'm sure it wasn't like quiet in there, but it was like they didn't get the response that they were expecting.
Yeah.
You know, and he was just telling his stories. He wasn't, he was just telling his truths.
Yeah. So Richard Pryor was offered an opportunity to play in NBC. It was before the incident. It was in 1977. He had his Richard Pryor show on NBC, but it only aired 4 episodes, and the reason why is because it was way too controversial.
Yeah, he had like skits that be controversial today. Like he had a skit where it was he had a machine gun and he was on the stage and he was only shooting his white fans, only white audience members.
God. And
it was just crazy. It was one where it was like a chick that's describing she was describing like her experience, her first experience as a lesbian, like it was in a park. And then another one, it was like, and then the skit was like the roast. It was like similar to the roast of the Dean Martin ones, where they just like a bunch of celebrities.
Yeah.
Where the show cast roasted Richard Pryor, and it was like it was just like racial stuff. Like it was stuff that they didn't want to put on air. Where they were talking about his big nose and big lips and.
Oh my God. I see being more racial rather than a roast.
The first episode, the first episode that they put on there, Pryor was shown nude, but his genitals were removed, like he was a Ken doll.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
only Richard Pryor. But this is the kind of crazy stuff you almost see on Comedy Channel, HBO. Because the controversy is what sparks dialogue. Controversy is what sparks communication. He's not making this stuff up because he's insane. You know what I'm saying? He's not like coming up with ideas just because he wants to think of abstract shows. No, it's just like daily things he would observe in the community, behind the scenes in movies and shows that he was invited to. This is stuff that he was just sharing with the public.
And then TV One aired all 4 episodes on it's a cable network. It's like African American themed cable network. They aired on 2 times, one in 2011 and then one in 2012 for Black History Month.
Oh wow!
They aired the uncensored, like just everything.
Just here it is, what he did. Yeah, it's on cable. You can only do it on cable. But NBC, I guess, for normal TV, they must have said, nope, this is too crazy. We definitely weren't ready in 1977. And now, I guess we're still not ready because we see it still on cable.
Exactly.
But I do like, there's a event where Eddie Murphy does a skit. He does a bit where he's saying that Bill Cosby called him, saying that he was swearing, he was doing too many swear words. And then he says he called Richard Pryor saying, hey, Bill Cosby just called me saying that I'm too raunchy. And then Richard Pryor says, tell that motherfucker, fuck you. If the people are laughing,
that's all that matters.
That's what matters. And Richard Pryor had a different perspective. He wasn't trying to give people what they wanted to hear. He was sharing with people what was going on. For sure. This guy just leaves me.
I had to get a drink real quick. I was feeling parched.
I gotta leave some water around here for us.
Please.
But
vodka.
Some drinks. Behind the snes we do.
Yeah, the vodka told me, shoot some more shit.
But that's the thing about Richard Pryor. He's definitely an inspiration. I enjoy listening to his stories. He just had an amazing ability to be so vivid. His shows were definitely ahead of its time. What really inspired you? Which is the show that really blew up for you?
Well, as far as with my stand-up or Richard Pryor's stand-up?
No, Richard Pryor's.
Shit, all of them. My favorite one is the one in Long Beach, though. Live in Long Beach. Richard Pryor live in concert. It came out in the 70s, like I think 79. And he's sweating like a motherfucker. He got like a silk shirt on, red shirt, black, or I think blue bell bottoms on. But it's just like raw. Like as soon as he get up there, it was like I think Patti LaBelle performed first. She opened for him.
Yeah.
So it was like after her performance, people went to the restroom. It was like intermission. Yeah. But then he went up right away. Like he didn't wait for people to go back to their seats. So he's like, this is my favorite part. When white people come back and see their seats got jacked. And then he started talking in a white voice like, I think these are our seats, right, babe? Yeah, those are our seats.
But keep moving.
And then he said, black people, like, ain't no seats now, motherfucker.
And that was so amazing.
He was just like, he talked about a lot of shit on that special. Like, that's my favorite one just because he told a lot of stories. Talked about when his dad punched him in his chest, or he was like talking about boxing. That's what it was. He said that just a lot of those stories were like really animated. He talked about not making a girl come. One of those jokes. He's like making excuses. Maybe your pussy dead. And then she's like, well, you need to give it mouth to mouth resuscitation. What is it, mouth to mouth
resuscitation?
Like he's just like he was true, man. He was like Dave Chappelle got a quote saying that he's like the chart of the evolution scale where the guy. Where, you know, in the evolution, when they start out like monkeys and they start growing into man. Yeah. He said Richard Pryor was like the one walking up straight. He was like the highest evolution of comedy.
I agree with that. He was just awake, and the way he delivered his skits, he just was able to really share the message. Exactly. There was a bit that I really enjoyed from him where he was saying, it's not easy going out as a black man. And you folks don't really understand what we're talking about. This was the mid-70s, you know, very recently out of civil rights movement. But he said, imagine me getting ready, ready to go out for the evening and take my wife, take my kids, put them in the car. And as we're driving, ready to have a good evening, take them to the restaurant, I get pulled over by a cop. And as the children and my wife is watching me, they're taking me outside and making me spread my legs, making me just humiliating me in front of my kids. I sit back in my car and go, you know what, children? Let's just go back home. The way he just explained that story, he really put it in the face that it was difficult. And he just made it funny. And that's the truth about it all. Comedy really wakes up and provides different perspectives.
Yeah, at that time, he was doing freebase. He was basically smoking crack. But he was like, I'm not addicted to cocaine. I just like the way it smells. That's like his joke. That's his joke. Like, and all he probably was doing was just riffing and telling his truth.
Yeah, he was just goofing around.
And that's a famous joke of his. Another joke I like where he talks about his dad that died. His dad was like in his 50s and he was fucking an 18-year-old girl. He said his dad died while fucking. He was like, my dad came and went at the same time.
Oh my God. Only Richard Pryor could do something like that.
Yeah, he was 57. He said, my father died fucking. He died doing what he loved.
Richard Pryor is known as well as having multiple marriages. He married 5 women 7 times. 2 of them twice.
He remarried at least 2 of them.
So he just did what he wanted. He just goofed around and did what he wanted.
He said, I believe in the institution of marriage, and I tend to keep trying until I get it right. That's a quote, Richard Pryor quote.
It was just amazing.
He said marriage is really tough because you have to deal with feelings and lawyers.
What do you think
getting married?
What do you think about Richard Pryor in today's era of the political correctness and the Twitter movement?
I think he would still get away with because it's the way you say it. It's not what you say; it's how you say it.
It's the intent.
He was a maverick. He was like a pioneer of telling the truth and the shit that you didn't want to hear, the shit, even if it was something that's controversial or, that was the whole point.
Yeah.
He was going to say it in a funny style. So, it's like, it's not too many people like that nowadays. Cat Williams is close to that.
Cat Williams, yeah. Louis C.K. Started doing that. George Carlin. Mm-hmm. George Carlin was very well known and starting to really deliver lines And we'll be talking about him soon in our show for sure.
Fuck yeah. He's one there as a greats too, but he changed styles too, just like Pryor did.
Yeah.
And
that's towards the later ones, yeah.
1998, Pryor won the first Mark Twain Prize of American Humor. And according to the Kennedy Center president, why he was selected as the first recipient of that prize, because he said, as a stand-up comic, writer, actor, he struck a chord and a nerve with America, forcing it to look at large social questions of race and the more the tragic aspects of the human condition. Though uncompromising in his wit, Pryor, just like Mark Twain, a generosity of spirit that unites us all. But they were both tyrant social critics who spoke the truth, however outrageous it was. That's the whole point.
That's the reality. Just like art, something that's visual that can be offending to someone, all it is creating an opportunity for dialogue.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't see how art could be offending someone. Well, I guess that picture they have of a chick giving a live birth.
Yeah, the one we have here in the gallery, we have one of a girl.
It's a chick giving out a live birth, dude. I was like, man, this shit is not necessary. They could have just showed her when she was holding her baby at the end. They had to show her fucking vagina wide open on the Grand Canyon.
It's just the reality of life. Again, that's the
truth that I don't want to see, though. I'll stay in the waiting room, coming when the baby's out.
And there you go. That kind of shows you how comedy gives an opportunity to provide a perspective, and it's always the intent behind it. And Richard Pryor was just so good at doing that. He won a lot of awards after that, right?
Yeah, just in general, like he's like Jerry Seinfeld calling him the Picasso of comedy. He's like it's Comedy Central voting him the greatest comedian of all time out of 100 greatest stand-ups. He's the greatest. He got the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2006, a year after he died. He's on his own different plateau as far as greats in comedy.
He won an Emmy in 73. Mm-hmm. He won 5 Grammys. One in 74, 75, 76, 81, and 82.
Yeah, that's when he was just putting out work. It was before he really blew up in mainstream, he was putting out a bunch of comedy albums. His best one to date is The Nigger's Crazy. And it came out in, I believe, 75.
Yeah, and the great thing about him is that he must have been able to share with up-and-coming comedians just what to look out for. Because his experience, he was on his own, to be honest with you. He couldn't rely on Bill Cosby. He couldn't rely on the artists of that time. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just, they were amazing artists, but it's just a different style. Richard Pryor was introducing something new. You know, this was the era of that.
He co-hosted the Academy Awards, and they were trying to give him a warning, like for his profanity and stuff. You know, just like he could just be himself.
Really?
And so, like early in the award, he slipped early in the program, and then a 5-second delay was instituted when returning from a commercial break. And then when he hosted Saturday Night Live, he was the first one where they made a 5-second delay.
Oh.
Because think about it, it's a live.
Yeah.
So like he was the first host where they put the 5-second delay, and then also was comedian Sam Kinison and Andrew Dice Clay. But they were like in the 80s.
So he's the first one who initiated the whole. Yeah. We got to be careful what
they had to make a delay.
And what's so
just
wild?
Like Janet Jackson and her titty at the Super Bowl, they did a delay because of that too.
What's so wild is that Richard Pryor didn't go out there trying to be, you know, just wild and shocking. Some comedians are like that. They're just trying to be shocking.
Yeah, they're just trying to get it for the reaction.
Just No, Richard Pryor was sharing reality of life. Reality of what was going on.
He was just himself. I think that's like where comedians say you got to try to find your voice. Like, he already knew his voice. He had his voice. He was himself on stage and off stage. He was the same person. Yeah. Where some people, they have to act once they get on stage. They turn on. Like, I'm not the same I am off stage and on stage. Yeah. You know, I turn on. It's a whole different level I go to. I'm on stage where as far as I'm just being here being myself. Where he was actually, it was no turn on, no turn off.
Yeah, he's just himself. No, I totally understand that. A lot of artists, whether they're visual artists or a comedian or music or musicians or singers, they try to hone in the technicality of the art, like understanding the fundamentals and what brings up that venue that they're trying to perfect. Mm-hmm. But it takes time to be yourself, to know, oh, I'm good at this. I love this. This is my passion. This is what I'm good at. And Richard Pryor, when he discovered it, he just shone. It was a bright light. It was just beautiful to see every single one of his shows. If you have the time, definitely check him out on YouTube. We'll put out some of the links below where you guys can see the clips that we have as well, and check out what an amazing individual he was.
Yeah.
He passed away on December 10th, 2005 in Encino, California, of a heart attack. Surrounded by his wife, Flynn.
But he was fighting he had MS. He had multiple sclerosis since he was like, I think the 90s or early 90s. Or maybe 86 he got diagnosed with,
Yeah, that just shows you what an amazing man he was, just trying to cope with the craziness that was his life. But then again, the contributions he gave to the comedy scene, the contributions that he gave to, not only the public, but the art itself is
my favorite Richard Pryor movie was The Toy, where he got bought by a little rich white kid.
Oh my God!
You heard of that movie?
I did see that one. It's so.
That's probably my favorite Richard Pryor movies, and then obviously Harlem Nights.
The way he delivered the scene, saying like, "This is technically slavery."
Yeah, exactly. But then also Harlem Nights with Eddie Murphy and Red Fox. It was freaking so many great comedians in that movie.
Yeah, my favorite.
Robin Harris.
My favorite from him was with Gene Wilder, and I believe it was called See No Evil, Hear No Evil.
That shit was funny,
That
too.
was so good. It's just the chemistry they had together.
Where he was blind and the white guy was deaf.
It's just so well delivered.
That was a genius movie, for sure.
Yeah.
You make me want to go watch that shit tonight.
And when he was on Superman 3, it didn't appear he was selling out because it was very cheesy.
He was making money.
Exactly. Good for you, Richard Pryor. If anybody offers you, no matter how cheesy it is, sell out. That's my recommendation.
Superman 3 was before all the Gene Wilder movies too, though. He was just making money. He was just taking roles.
Silver Streak was good.
All right, that was good too.
Silver Streak was good. Amazing comedian, amazing actor. And all he was doing is being himself. Came from a crazy background, just trying to live life, and then make the best of it in the entertainment world, because the entertainment world is not easy.
No. You find a way. You find it's gonna be ups and downs, and you just try to keep the ups more often.
Got to figure it out, but you have support of your friends and your loved ones, and you just keep doing you. There is a difference. There's always the intent behind what you're trying to create, and that's what speaks volumes. Richard Pryor. We definitely miss his presence, but what's so awesome is that he left so much work behind for us to study upon and check out. That just makes it worth the while. Yeah. Anything else you want to share with us about the amazing Richard Pryor before we finish our show?
Hey man, that's just one of the greats that we're gonna be talking about. A lot of legends and comedians in the games, dead or alive, but we had to start with like the greatest of all time. It was Richard, Franklin, Lennox, Mason Pryor III.
Thomas Pryor III.
And then people like Jay Leno called him Richie. Like when Jay Leno talks about him, Jay Leno calls him Richie. Like you gotta like, all right, bro, we know you knew him. So you ain't gotta give out the nicknames and shit.
He's trying to like
just say Pryor, dude. Nah, but yeah, he was a shit, man. He was like, so he influenced so many, just his style. He influenced me, he was like, he's not my generation. Like I was more Martin and like the Wayans brothers, Living Color. And Seinfeld, but like as far as I still knew Richard Pryor even before I started doing comedy, I still knew his style, even the way he paced the stage.
Yeah,
like he started all that shit.
That's right. In fact, there's a clip where an audience member asked him, "Why are you walking on the stage?" And
most time he was probably high anyway.
He was probably
high. But I mean, like,
yeah,
he used the whole stage. Literally, renowned comedians do that all the time, where he just does
back
his
then
jokes.
It wasn't. Yeah.
He was definitely a pioneer, man. So mad respect and salute to one of the greatest on that mic, Richard Pryor, man.
Yeah. Well, Homegrown Podcast, thanks for watching. Hope you guys stay tuned for the next episodes. Cheers.